video to help us figure out exactly what happened with Lab 9 last week and how to move forward. Okay, so I noticed a couple of patterns with the EDA Playground code that you guys sent me. A couple of themes emerged, and let's go over, exactly what happened. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to tell you about was one of the problems was we were using the sprinkler controller test bench to help debug our code, which makes sense. We're writing the sprinkler controller. It makes sense to use that test bench. But I forgot to instantiate the timer in that controller test bench. And so there was no way for the timer signal to feed back into the simulation. And so everything was just stuck. All right. And so we spent a lot of time looking at the logic conditions that were happening within the case statement. But the problem wasn't the logic conditions. The problem was that you didn't have access to the timer variable because the test bench wasn't instantiated correctly. Okay, so that was one thing that emerged. The other thing that emerged is the use of begin and end. All right, so let me zero in on this particular case. All right, so with station 1, this is within a case statement, so I have station 1 colon, and then I begin and end. All right, so at the top here, begin, and then at the bottom here, end, the case statement for station 1. Along the way, I have an if and also an else. So there's an if block with the first condition, an else block with the second condition. Those have to be within begin and end if there's multiple lines. Okay, so in this particular case, what I've done with this new version of this code is I've consolidated the output stage with the next stage within one always block. And so I'm going to use for this if condition, I'm going to have a two lines of code that I need to write. And so I have to enclose those within a begin and an end. All right, so that was the other thing that I saw. I saw some of the logic conditions weren't being executed correctly because several of you didn't have the begin and end within the if statement. Okay, so let's go over that one more time. If, all right, it's a multiple line, so begin and end. If it was only one line, you wouldn't need the begin and end, but there's two lines here in this if block. The same thing happens with the else block. There's a begin and an end with more than one line. Okay, so what you should see is, well, before I go on, the other change that I made to the whole system is with the station variable. So the station variable before was only 3 bits, but it turns out that when we're in the load state, we're going to want to blank the display. So I felt like the easiest way to do that was to make the station variable 4 bits and then just go ahead and send that signal over to the display so that it will blank during the load stages. All right, so I increased the station wire size from 3 bits to 4 bits to make that happen. Okay, along the way, that forced me to change the top, all right? But in this new test bench, I'm just giving you the top, all right? And so what I want you to do is go through here and let me show you. I gave you a new template here that you can use, and the only thing you need to update is sprinkler controller, all right? So what I've done here is I've given you all the basics. Oops, that's the wrong one. What I've given you is all the basics of how to get started with the state machine description for the sprinkler controller. I got you started with station 1 load and station 1. Even gave station 2 load, and all I need you to do is complete the rest of the logic that goes between station 2, station 3 load, between these begin and end statements. So you can use this logic as the template to plug in and finish this off. All right, so along the way, I made revisions to the top where the station length, the station wire was moved to 4 bits instead of 3 bits so that everything would work. All right, so you can use this top, and all you have to do is complete this code for the sprinkler controller. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my old playground here that's completely working. That would be this one. And notice I've got all the code filled out here. All right, and here's how you can tell whether your design is working. We're gonna go straight to the wrapper, okay, and do the wrapper test bench. I'm gonna run this, and you should see something like this show up on your screen. Okay, I think I might have had to add the state variable here, but this is what you see, and we can tell this is working because I'm seeing it go 1, and then there's, if you zoom in, you can see the load states. So 9 is the load state for 1. So load state, and then station 1, load state, then station 2, load state 3, then station 3, so forth. All right, and so you should see that kind of look, and once you get that going, you're ready to move your design over to Vivado. Okay, and then the last thing I want you to do is I ask a question about, oh, how could you improve this design, or what are some factors that you could think of that would help add features that maybe would help market this to various customers or have a positive impact on the environment, things like that. So I'd like you to finish the lab, demonstrate this working, and then fill out that one section on Canvas, and we'll be ready to wrap up Lab 9, which also conveniently wraps up the course.